3 kids, one who was pretty different than the other 2, and that began our autism journey. And I had to get up to speed pretty quickly and became an advocate for my son and for others. And then I got into leadership positions with the Autism Society and formed a special needs registry for Santa Clarita. And kind of as my son grew up and other people's children were growing up, we were facing new issues and things that didn't exist needed to be created. So I kind of took that upon myself to address some of the unmet needs that we face as families and educators as our children grow up, and to make the world a better and safer place for them.
And just before Tom says something, let me just reference that then, I came behind Emily, and we used to live in Santa Clarita. That's where my son was living when he was diagnosed. And my world was better because Emily had gotten there first.
Wow.
Like, I'm gonna cry. But honestly, a lot of the things that I know you guys struggle with in your communities, and you're like, well, nobody has done this and nobody done this. Emily had already done a lot of the work by the time I got there. So I was able to do other things, which made my journey easier and go that much further, because I didn't have to go create a program with the police in my community because Emily had already done it.
Thank you.
Emily, I always say we have to have respect for the people that put the snowshoe prints in first that we followed in, and Emily was very much that for me in my community. I have goosies thinking about all the things that I encountered that were that much further because you'd been there before me.
Well, thank you. And I felt like I had to do it. Like, it wasn't okay that we didn't have inclusion programs in our school, or, that kids could wander and no one knew how to find them, and, that the police weren't trained and that youth weren't trained to know how to interact with the police. So I took those projects on.
Well, and that's, it has been an amazing thing for me and for others. I know so many others, and some people who don't even know. There were years when I did not know that was you that had done that. But early on, I needed the advice of an advocate, and somebody said, "Oh, well, you just happen to live in the neighborhood of the woman that I would have recommended anyway." And I very early on had a phone call with you, and then didn't get to meet you for another million years. But and then later was able to piece together, oh, I had that because of Emily. I had this because of Emily. I was able to go and do something completely different because Emily had done those other things for me. So that's just one of the many reasons why I love Emily. And then Tom, tell us about you.
And for your
and I have my own.
Set.
I do. They're right here. What a gentleman!
And wipe your eyes
what
for
a
you.
gentleman, though. That it's like I've got this for you, but I do have my own to mop down because I do that from time to time. But look, what a fabulous gentleman, Tom. Tell us about you.
Thank you, Shannon. So I was diagnosed with autism when I was 13, and I've come a long way in a lot of personal and professional struggles. Basically, I loved numbers and I loved Star Wars growing up, and my goal in life to be George Lucas's accountant.
I love that.
And became a CPA, worked for companies including Disney, which later acquired Lucasfilm, so in a way I accomplished my goal. But as I got deeper and deeper into accounting, I became more and more unhappy. And I also heard more and more stories of my peers having difficulties knowing themselves, loving themselves, and being themselves. So 3 years ago, I took the big leap of faith and left accounting behind completely, a permanent job with benefits, because I belong on stages. I belong face-to-face with people with autism and their allies, parents, family members, teachers, therapists, telling my story and what I've learned along the way so that they can become their best selves too. And I'm branching out into coaching now. I'm looking to become a certified human potential coach.
Ooh,
to
I
bring
like
out
that
the
title.
bring out the best in others.
And I gotta say, I love hearing you say that I belong on stage, I belong talking to people, because I've heard you speak and I think you're right. I think that you're absolutely right. And for people who are looking for a speaker, Tom is a great choice. You should have him come and speak to your group. But Mom, you were like, woohoo, I have this son, and we were able to do all these things, and he's a CPA, and he's fully employed, and woohoo, we've arrived. I can kind of take a breath. And then he says, Mom, I think I'd like to quit this full-time job because I've got a dream. I'm sure that was not your favorite day.
Well, first I said, are you crazy? You're making almost as much as your dad, and you have health insurance.
Right.
Why would you leave that?
Right.
And then I went to bed and I thought, well, who am I to say he shouldn't pursue his dreams, or who am I to say that he shouldn't put his happiness over his stability?
Right.
So I called him up the next day. I said, Tom, I had a brief moment of doubt, but I think you need to follow your gut and take the risk,
Right.
and because happiness is more important, and really finding your niche is what's important.
Yeah.
He thought that was going to be his niche. We worked like dogs to get him there, right?
Right.
And both of us did a lot to accomplish that. And of course, he gets most of the credit, but it wasn't easy. And so then to say, okay, we're starting over.
Right.
But he's done that as well, and it's going very well.
And what a wonderful, I remember right around when that was happening, and I remember you talking so positively about how it was your intention to support him,
Yeah.
to find his dream. And I remember standing in a parking lot with you and hearing you say that and going, oh gosh, I need to remember this for later on, because I know this is going to come up in my life too.
Yeah.
And that, again, you were putting down snowshoes for me to follow in, to remember it's his life.
Yes.
And that it has to be what makes him happy, or what's the point?
And then people asked, well, what are his secrets to success? And that's how we ended up writing a book together, because I knew what I had done to help him be successful, including relaunching himself. But then I said, well, what are your secrets? And then I was shocked by his answer. So that's how our book came to be, our new book.
Well, Tom, hold up the book. So, and we've had you on to talk about this before, but this is a great, oh, I love that, can I also say too, that this family, both of you have always been, it is always, when you have set out to write a book, or do something, you've always thought from the beginning of how and when are we putting this in Spanish, and it's like right behind the English. I gotta respect that too, because that has to happen, and yet I have to be honest, it isn't the thing that occurs to me until somebody says it and I go, oh, we don't have this in Spanish. But look at this, you guys. Look at how that it's available in both. Okay, so let's take a couple of minutes to talk about Come to Life and Ven a la Vida. Is that the correct
That is
pronunciation? And my son and I got to do some of the workshop things in it before it came out, and we loved it. We still talk about it. So I highly recommend it. But tell the folks who this is for and what you hope to accomplish through the book.
Well, there aren't many books out there that are spoken from a person with autism to people with autism. So this book is me essentially talking to my peers, explaining to them what they need to know and do in order to become their best selves. And we named it Come to Life because when I started college, started becoming an adult, taking responsibility for my own life, I realized I can't sit back and wait for life to come to me. It's up to me to come to life. And too many young people are sitting back, playing video games, hoping for some kind of miracle or letting others dictate their lives.
Yes.
And I say, it's you that has to drive your life forward. It is you that has to go out there and experiment, find out what's working, what's not. It is you that has to make your life the best it can. It starts and ends with you.
Isn't that a great message? But I think it goes a little bit further than that, because there are some people who are sitting at home playing video games and don't know that there's anything else.
Exactly.
And I think that one of the things that I'm calling them workshops, but they're
Activities.
Thank you. That what it does is it helps to uncover the dreams that lead to the desire to find the other thing.
Exactly. We call it your guide to self-discovery, and Tom is the guide.
Yeah.
And self-discovery is the process, and that's what we're not doing with our young people. And we feel that transition planning isn't going well, because we bring young people to the table and say, what do you like? What do you want? What are you good at? And the answer is, I don't know.
For kids on the autism spectrum, those questions are, you might as well be saying,
Exactly.
right? I hate it when people, still to this day, my son is doing so well, but people will say, what's your favorite subject? And he hates questions that are like, what's my favorite? because it's not getting to the meat of what he
Right.
wants to talk about. If you could say to him, you know, what made you excited this week, and then
Yeah.
he could answer that.
Well, you know, I heard somebody say when you ask what's your favorite, they have to think of everything in that category and then rank it. And that's why it
Yes.
takes them so long to process.
And he hates it.
But the reason they don't have the answers is because we haven't given them the experiences to discover. And so the whole book is about self-discovery, because what we're doing is bringing people to the table, asking the questions. The answer is I don't know, but we still plan anyway,
Yeah.
based on nothing. And then we say, oh, look, this transition plan didn't yield anything.
Because
Well,
they're leading a life that's essentially not theirs,
Right.
that they don't want. No
Yeah.
wonder they're being unhappy and crashing
Right.
and burning.
well, and no wonder why we have such high rates of depression and anxiety.
Yep.
And then that leads to things that, you know, look, we don't all want to talk about, but we have to, that we have a high rate of suicide in our young people. Young people, period, but young people on the spectrum have a much higher rate of thoughts of suicide and suicidal actions than do neurotypical people.
I
who are
have read that
depressed.
the average age of a person with autism, average lifespan, is 36 years old.
Which
and
is
then they
ridiculous.
end it. And I am going to turn that age this year. Mind you, I'm not planning on ending my life, but
Of course
I,
not.
I
You're
feel
starting to,
very
right?
much for those that are having those thoughts and thinking
Struggling.
there's no hope.
And for parents, we need to, and teachers, we need to get a hold of this idea and say the seeds get sown so much earlier.
Yes.
And I think that this is the only book that's addressing that. So where do they get the book? How do they get the book? And how do they work through the book? What are the expectations?
So you can find this book on my website, thomasiland.com. And it's also available on Amazon. It's a #1 bestseller.
We also won 11 awards for it this year.
Wow.
International Latino Book Awards, and it won the Best Self-Help Book in Spanish category.
Oh,
Also
I'm
a
so proud of
forward
you
book
guys.
review and
I think one of the judges said that this book belongs in every high school or college classroom.
Well,
Every high school or college student needs access to this
and
book.
I'm sure that you guys have explored this, but have you done the thing where it's in every library in every high school?
not yet.
Okay.
We would like some help with that.
That,
It's not
uh,
easy to accomplish.
That needs to happen. It should be in every single library. It's amazing. So now that we know where to get it, talk a little bit about how you work through the things and the partnership that the parent can do to work on it.
It begins with knowing yourself. And when it came to talking about my diagnosis and bringing it to my attention, and when I was finally told that I have a pattern of differences, that's what we call autism, a pattern of differences. And that I was asked, do I want to know what it's called? I'm like, no, I don't. But eventually I came back to say, all right, what's it called?
Right.
And part of knowing about my diagnosis, I could not accept it until I knew my parents had. I think this is a major prerequisite in young people's lives. They don't accept themselves or understand themselves fully because the parents or the person they look up to does not know or accept the kid for who they are. So it's a major prerequisite that we need to address more. Once the parents can see that their kid has potential, that this is the way their kid is going to be, and love them for who they are, then the kid is going to have more success in life.
And I think piggybacking on that is parents who are afraid to tell their kids about their autism because they think it's going to hurt their self-esteem and all, you know, the labeling issues. The alternate is not knowing who you are and not understanding all facets of yourself. And that can really hurt people as they get older and as they need to understand themselves more, to self-advocate,
Yeah.
tell what they need, find what they like and are good at. They need to know about their entire selves without shame. 'Cause the secret is a hint that the parent's ashamed of the child or their diagnosis.
So we need to be clear about that. And this, going through these activities together can really help with that. And so you have activities in the book, and the expectation is that the parent and the individual do them together,
Or teachers can do it.
or teachers can do it. And what age range do you guys specify for the book?
We're looking at ages 12 and older, anybody that's on the verge of a major transition, maybe from elementary school to junior high school to high school, high school to college, moving out of mom and dad's house, looking for your first job, these big time events that we don't really prepare our youth for.
Yeah.
These have the questions that will give the answers to lead your best life in those transition situations.
And autism is a huge spectrum of people affected in a lot of different ways. Is there a level of, do they need to be verbal to be able to do this? Do they need to be able to read to be able to do this? Or can a teacher or parent work through it with them no matter what level they're at? What do you think?
Well, the parents and the teachers will know how best to work with or communicate with the individuals, so this can work for a wide spectrum of learning and comprehension levels.
Okay.
And I would add to that, don't assume that someone can't or shouldn't have a process of self-discovery because they may have limited verbal ability.
Right.
They are entitled to and deserving of the same process of self-discovery, even if you have to approach it slightly differently. The nuts and bolts are there. How you would adapt it is up to you. But we need to give everyone opportunities to find their strengths, to find their niche, and to find their voice.
And one of the things that I found in doing the activities that I did with my son was, there for some of us, it's not everybody, but I have found that in recent years, as well as my son is doing, he's off doing other things. He doesn't especially want to talk to me. And I had become this non-entity person in his life that was the cook, the cleaner, the cook, the maid, and the chef, right? And the chauffeur. But what this did was gave us an opportunity side by side to do an activity and say what we were thinking and feeling about the activity. And I learned things about him that he wouldn't have shared with me otherwise.
It's wonderful.
Which was very eye-opening. But he also got to hear a little bit about my perspective on things, which has made things better. I think it has helped him to see, for perspective taking from my side, and to see me as a person, a living, breathing person. Instead of just the person who washes his clothes.
Right.
Do you know? And
I
that's
do.
an important
I do.
thing for any teenage relationship.
I think so. And I think one of the most important messages parents can share with their children of any age is, I want to help you have the life you want for yourself.
Yes.
Rather than young people feeling like we're pushing them down a certain path when we didn't even give them a chance to decide if
There's
that's the
that.
right path.
There is that.
So
That's
you know,
important.
if they know you're an ally for their dreams, and say they want to be an astronaut. Not everyone can be an astronaut, but you can say, okay, if you're going to be an astronaut, what do we need to do to get you there?
That's right. And then start doing it.
And then start doing it, and you might get close.
All right, we're going to take a break, but before we go to break, I want to address some of the things that people have been writing in on Facebook, saying hi to Kaz and Sharon and Rosie. And Rosie's excited about today's show, and aren't you excited that we're hearing all this? Hi to Chris. Raquel. Megan says, love you so much, but fighting a huge battle in Canada. We know we need 25 hours of ABA, but our... this is a long one. But our provincial government in charge of us is allotting $140K per child, income tested, so many get less for their life. That's $140K for all therapy until 18. Can you add your or Dr. Doreen's voice to Autism Parents United? We will definitely look into that, about the budget. Be happy to help you. Let's get you booked on the show to talk about this. Let's do that. Laura Michelle, respite care, special daycare for break for hubby and I. Have ARC friends and family. I'm going to read more about that during the break and figure out what it is that you're asking me. Helen, hello, Shannon. Your program helps me to talk about autism and diagnosis as an adult. Bond we have with the nephew is extra special. We're glad to hear that. Wonderful. Beverly says, hello, Shannon. Just listening to you, and I love your show. I'm a grandma and a mother who has a grandson with autism. I have so many questions I want to ask you. How can I talk with you? Right where you're writing it, this works. And then we can get to your questions here, or you can write them in on the website, autism-live.com, or you can email me, s.penrod@autism-live. Emily inspired me to be the best advocate for my son, not only in school, but also in the community. Tom reassured me that if parents believe, amazing progress is possible. Love you guys. And that's from Myrna.
Oh, yes,
Myrna's
we love
saying
Myrna.
hello. And Nava is watching. Hi, Nava.
Hi, Nava.
Okay, So I'm going to read those longer ones that I didn't get to during the break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about be safe, and then we are going to get to the topic that I promised, talking about what happens when school is over and adult life is here. We're going to be feeding some of that in. But stick with us, you guys. We're glad you're here. We'll be back after these messages.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with your Talk of Facts, the autism journey questions and answers that you need to help your child make the progress they need. I'm here to talk to you about one really important item. A lot of people ask me the question, well, Lisa, I want to see this specialist in another state. How do I do that? You know, I don't own a jet. I don't have the ability to fly without great pain and travel. Not a problem. We know how to get this done. So I actually encourage families, even though in travel can be a tremendous hardship, getting a child with autism through security, through the plane, and in the journey to where they need to go. We have a whole white paper on TACA about how to travel with special needs kids. So it can be done. So travel, we know that can be expensive. Not everyone has an unlimited supply of cash for air flights. We love and work with this group called miracleflights.org. They're fantastic. They will fly you and your child, so one parent, one adult, anywhere in the United States, one time a year. Also in the TACA document are places to stay. So often you will have people in your life that love and support your family and don't know exactly how to help. Ask them to gift you their travel or their rewards cards or coupons for hotel, rental car. That's a great way to be able to get maybe a hotel room that has a refrigerator or a microwave and that's close to a Whole Foods, so you don't have that added cost of going out to dinner, especially if your kid has a lot of allergies. It's important to note that there's not a pediatrician or a specialist by every Starbucks in the United States. Close does not always equal best. So I bring up the travel point so you know that travel is possible, number one, and often it's really going to help you get down the road faster for your kid and getting the answers you need from the specialist that knows what to do. So don't be afraid to travel.
Okay.
Welcome back, you guys, to Autism Live. We're here live in the studio with Tom Iland and Emily Iland. And we have been talking about Come to Life, the book that they wrote together, and want to encourage people to get that and do the activities in the book with the person in your life that you care so much about. It is a really great thing to do. I wanted to pivot a little bit and take a second, Emily, to talk about be safe. This never goes out of fashion. I wish it did. But there are so many times on this show when we cover in the news and we talk about a story where an interaction has happened with an individual on the spectrum and a first responder that goes wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can all shout and yell and scream and say that our police force needs to be better trained, and I'm not going to disagree. They need more training. I don't think you would disagree with that either, and you work hard to provide the training. But, you know, I think that there's another side to it, and that's that if we just did that, we would be doing a lot, but we wouldn't be doing everything that we could, which is also giving training to our individuals on the autism spectrum about what may or may not happen and how to react.
Right.
And this is another way that Emily has helped all of us, because you don't have to go look for a program. You don't have to go figure it out. You can get her program. Better than that, you can have her come, and it isn't just you anymore, because now you take Tom with you, and you guys tour and go to places, and we'll meet with families and with individuals on the spectrum, but you also do a training with the police and other first responders if asked. So tell them about Be Safe, the movie,
Sure.
and how they can make this happen.
Sure. So I think you know that I thought that training the police was the solution when I was worried about Tom driving and my friends who had children who wandered and all that 20 years ago.
Right.
I started training the police, and I wrote the training for the LAPD that they're still implementing more than once a month since 2006.
Right.
So we're at about 9,000 LAPD trained.
Amazing.
But when we're looking at the news and seeing what's going wrong, 4 things happen when something goes wrong with anybody in a police interaction. You run, you fight, you reach, or you reach. So the officers pointed out that to me, and I realized that that was happening, and I thought, who's teaching our young people not to do those 4 things?
Right.
And how do we reframe those into positive behaviors? Stay where you are, follow instructions, keep your hands to yourself, and stay calm.
Yeah.
So those are the 4 life-saving behaviors we decided to teach. I wrote a script. I worked with Joey Travolta to make the movie. We have actors with disabilities in the film interacting with real police, and we use video modeling to show what to do instead. So that's what Be Safe is all about. And I wrote a companion curriculum to go along with it that any parent or teacher can use that has differentiated materials for people of all verbal and cognitive abilities. Because we need to teach this to everyone and assume that everyone can benefit from A, the video modeling, because there's evidence that it works for people of all abilities,
Yes.
and B, from the differentiated curricular materials where we take concepts and present the same concept 12 different ways, so that we are sure we're reaching everyone. If you're into ABA or other therapies where we break tasks down and practice again, why should we think it's going to be fine to send our youth out into the community without practicing what to do when you meet the police?
Exactly.
But that's what we're doing.
I know, and it's upsetting to me, but I'm able to sleep at night because I know that you've made this. And so people who want to reach out and get this have a way of getting this. And it can be as simple for a parent as watching the DVD yourself and then watching it with the person in your life that you love, whether it's what age range do you think?
12 and up again.
12 and up. And sitting and watch. I'm sure that I watched it with Jem before he was
did.
12 though. And like he probably would have been 10. And I remember watching it first and I was like, oh my gosh, because there are things that I didn't know and hadn't thought about. So there's no way I would have taught him or prepared him for. And I watch the news and I am mortified by some of the things that I see. And I'm terrified for so many people. But if we don't do our part in it, then what are we doing?
That's exactly right. And some people overlook it. And I know in the beginning when Tom was younger, I was afraid to even think about this topic, or I was too busy keeping my day glued together and our life glued together. That this was for later. But this is not for later. And you're right. The first 3 episodes of this movie, which are follow the law to be safe, the police are here to protect and serve, and their equipment's interesting, but don't touch it.
Yeah.
That's for everybody of any age.
Yeah.
It gets more complicated after that. Our 4th scene is of a boy waiting at a bus stop, and he's mistaken for an armed robber. So the police come at him with their guns drawn.
Yes.
This happened 2 weeks ago in Tempe, Arizona, to a man with autism who had seen Be Safe.
Oh my goodness.
And he knew what to do.
Oh, I just got chills.
In fact, I actually trained his mother. I do a certificate course to train educators and leaders how to use this material. And she had been trained and she had worked with her son. And she feels that him having seen the videos made the difference of life and death in this situation.
I was just going to say, we didn't hear about this because he's still alive. And so it didn't make the news because he's still alive. And, let's remember that we don't want to be on the news because of the horrible things that happen. And here's the answer.
And they're preventable.
Yes.
He has low verbal ability, but you don't have to be able to talk to follow instructions from the police.
Exactly.
His mom would have hoped that he had done it a little quicker,
Yeah.
but he did not have the second part of Be Safe, where we do an event called an interactive movie screening, where we train the police with my Experience Autism program,
Right.
the only evidence-based police training in America at this point. Then we pair up those trained police with our youth to watch Be Safe and practice the safety activities together, like asking for help and following instructions.
Yeah.
So she felt if he had also had the live practice, he would have been quicker in his responses to the police.
But even then,
Right.
His life was saved. So, Emily, for people who are watching this and who are like, well, I don't think they've done this in my neighborhood and they haven't done it in my community, what do they need to do? Because you've been able to go to many places. In fact, didn't you guys just get back?
Last night at midnight from Texas.
And they're here
From
today.
Crowley, Texas.
Wow. And so how does that happen?
Right.
Is that a
So people-
parent that makes that happen?
People contact me at emily@besafethemovie.com.
Okay.
And we have a menu of services we offer, and Tom and I co-train together. So we can do an activity for youth with police like we did yesterday in Texas, or we can build local capacity for educators and leaders and service providers to use this curriculum with hundreds and hundreds of people.
Right.
And and then we also train the police. So it's a package, and you can
Right.
get anything you want. But a lot of people write grants for it, or a lot of organizations are making this a priority, and they're coming to us and bringing us in and finding the funding for it. And there is funding out there.
There is funding for education. I mean, sometimes the police department has the funding for it. Sometimes your public library has the funding for it. Sometimes your local school has the funding for it.
Department of Mental Health, Department of Developmental Disabilities, all different people have made this a priority, and our phone is ringing off the hook, which is as it should be.
Yes.
You know, because this has to be in every community, and I don't know if you knew this, but there's a company called Teachtown, and now they can stream Be Safe into classrooms
Oh, that's great.
via subscription, and it's in a format where there's a pre-question, the student is on their own computer, watches the episode, does the post-question, and the computer tracks for the teacher which episode the students are on,
Oh, I love it.
and then the teacher uses the curricular materials to build the skills and vocabulary.
I love it. I love that technology is helping us to get there one way or the other.
Yes.
So all those different ways, amazing. But if there's something in your gut right now that's saying, uh-oh, I think we need this, follow through on it today. So they should email you, Emily, at besafethemovie.com. Okay. And talk to Emily and see if you guys can't get something worked out so that they can come and that you can benefit from this. People also can just buy the DVD.
They can buy just the DVD, that's just the movies, but I recommend that they get the DVD plus the curriculum, which comes on a CD-ROM, and you just print out what you need.
And when you
I
print it,
see.
and when you print it out, it looks like this.
Yeah, if you printed out this whole thing, it looks like this, 300 pages.
Right.
But you don't have to. If
Right.
you just select the items you want and use those, but it goes a little deeper. Like, for example, if we say respect boundaries with the police,
Yeah.
but what if you don't know what personal space is?
Yeah.
Or you don't know what boundaries are? We have to
Yeah.
go deeper in the curriculum with that idea, and
Yeah.
then the movie makes more sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me weigh in by saying that we say safety first all the time, but are we really putting it first when we put our kids out there? We're leaving safety to chance by not teaching them this material. And it takes, unfortunately, a tragedy for us to be aware of it, or like, oh, what did that kid not know? Or those police officers should have been trained. Be proactive in teaching safety, making it their priority so the kids know what to do and what to say when, no longer if, when they meet the police, even if they're minding their own business. They're going to have an encounter one way or another.
We've seen it too many times.
Yeah.
We've seen it way too many times. Okay, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about you guys, your advice on what happens after school is done, and what we can do to get all of our individuals on the spectrum ready so that there isn't this cliff.
Yeah.
And instead of being, again, saying, well, why hasn't somebody done that? Sometimes people have to create it themselves. You're the queen of that. In any case, don't forget that a little bit later on, next hour, we're having Alex Plank on to talk about his recent stint on The Good Doctor. So, but we're going to take a break. And as we go to break, there was one more comment that I wanted to read, but I've lost it now, and I'll do it when we come back. Stick with us. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Tom Iland and Emily Iland, and we've been talking about a wide variety of topics. Their fabulous book, Come to Life, which everyone should get, but also Be Safe, the movie. And I was saying to Emily during the break that one of the things that I find that you guys write in about the most, that I end up referring people to Emily, is for your reading comprehension program. Can you talk briefly about that?
So when I was doing my master's degree at Cal State Northridge, I was inspired to do it by the fact that Tom was struggling, in spite of his many abilities, he was struggling with reading comprehension, and I wanted to know why and what to do about it.
Yeah.
And when I was so excited to do a master's program and a postmaster's program to ask that question and get the answers, but nobody was discussing it.
Well, did anybody know, is the
Well,
question.
it wasn't even a topic of discussion in the highest level reading classes, because the focus is always on dyslexia,
Yeah.
not people who can decode but don't understand. So I had to do an independent study and ended up writing the book Drawing a Blank, Improving Comprehension for Readers on the Autism Spectrum. And reading is a developmental process, And autism is a developmental disability. So
Yeah.
you take a developmental process and a developmental disability and you get a mismatch.
Yeah.
And so there's 43 places the comprehension breaks down for readers with autism. And the reason those is happening is all related to a different aspect of autism, like vocabulary development or reading nonverbal cues, which you can't do in writing if you can't do it in real life. And
Right.
all these different features of autism contribute to this big problem that's often masked by the ability to decode.
Wow.
So I looked at all the research I could find and found 5 things people could do about it. And since I've written it, I also added a few promising practices, but that's still the state of the research today. I wrote that book in 2011. 8 years later, we really haven't made much more progress. So the things that we know work still work, but
Yeah.
there's a small handful. And one of the biggest things is preparing to read. Don't just hand somebody some material and hope for the best.
Right.
They need to be primed and prepared with vocabulary and concepts.
Yeah.
Which is funny enough, once I discovered that for that book, that's why I created Be Safe the way I did. I primed and broke down the concepts to prepare them to understand. So that's really the key, is that preparation to read.
Well, so that's called Drawing a Blank, and where do they get that?
That's on Amazon or from AAPC publishers.
Okay.
And I can tell you where the title came from, Drawing a Blank. Basically, I was having difficulty with reading comprehension, and I was given the assignment to write an essay of what life will be like 50 years in the future. And I'm sitting there like, what could it possibly be like? And I told Mom, if it hasn't happened to me, my mind is a blank page. That was our aha moment.
Yeah.
Right.
So that people with autism are more familiar with concrete known things, and that's why they like factual materials.
Right.
But think about novels.
Yeah.
With a few exceptions, like Harry Potter and Star Wars seem to be the exceptions, but generally speaking, novels are too far removed from the person's own experience, physical and emotional experiences perhaps, and it's too much to ask. It's not an easy task, so it's avoided, and the less they do it, the less proficient.
Yes.
So,
And the comprehension tests that we have today focus on the concrete, detailed aspects. Like, what color was the girl's dress? Yellow.
drives
It
me
says so right
crazy.
there. Why do you think the author made the girl's dress yellow? Because he could.
Right.
so the inferential.
So our young people
All the
pass the
different
tests
stuff.
that are based on the concrete details, but dismisses or they tend to miss the questions about abstract, emotional
Yeah.
concepts, and then they don't understand what they read, they stop reading, they don't develop other aspects of their learning and development,
Yeah.
and that's what's
a
causing them
vicious
to fall
cycle.
through the cracks. It's a very vicious cycle.
I have to say too, with the current core curriculum, the way that they test hurts my head.
Yeah.
It's very, and I understand why they're testing the way they do, but it's very difficult for anyone, I think, but for an individual on the autism spectrum,
And
You know?
actually, I wanted to know what is the best test for testing comprehension, and I read the textbook on it, and it said there is no best test for testing comprehension, but make sure you test all 5 types of comprehension. And I'm like, there's 5 types of comprehension?
yeah,
And there are, and most tests only test 1. Most of the standardized tests test 1 or 2, but there's actually 5. So that's what the book's about, is how to unmask and identify the issues so they can be addressed. Because if you just look at the facade, can they read this number of words? Do they get 80% of the questions right? Yes, the 80 concrete percent
Right.
of the questions. Then they're
Oy.
flying above the radar. But it's a
Interesting.
fascinating topic, and I do guided tours of drawing a blank for teachers and teach them all the
Yes.
information, because there's so little information about this. We've got to inform them about the problem so they can look for their own solutions on an
Yeah.
individual basis.
yes. So if there's, and we have teachers who are watching, if there's somebody who wants to attend one of these workshops, where are we finding out information about that?
EmilyIland.com is where I have my everything about me and all the things I'm doing. I don't have any scheduled right now, but I go wherever I'm brought in to do that work. And
Okay.
especially in Texas, they love that in Texas. They want to raise their rating. They want to raise their reading scores for students with disabilities, and they're finding that this is a great resource for doing it.
And they should want to do that because they've been slapped with giant
A little
fines,
bit.
haven't they? So, good that they're, putting action where it should be.
Yes.
Let's say that with love. Okay, so, and we're running out of time, but we wanted to talk with you guys about the cliff and about how best to prepare individuals for when school's over. And school could be over at 18, it could be over at 21, it could be over later. We have individuals on the spectrum that are going and getting master's degrees, but still there is, I think for anyone, when I remember what it was like for me when I was first done with college, and I went out into the workforce for 2 years, then went back to graduate school, and then went, oh, it's time for adult life. And, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but it can still be very intimidating. And for our kiddos that are on the autism spectrum, if we wait to think about it then, I feel like that's the wrong thing. So from everything that you guys have learned, what are some things that we can be doing earlier so that they know what to do then?
Well, you need to be preparing for adulthood well before it actually happens. You don't wait until their 18th birthday to say, okay, here's what's next. You gotta start preparing at 10, 11, 12 years old. Start thinking things through. And we've talked a little bit about independent living, and the Drexel Institute did a study and found independent living skills are the #1 indicator of success. So it's starting in the household.
Okay.
That was actually teach.
Teach. So giving young people a chore, helping them master it, and then move on to another chore, help them master that, move on to another chore. Then they start to realize they have the power, they can do things, and that starts to give them responsibility towards their life. Now, as we look at the schooling situation, I don't know if you've ever heard of the diploma track,
Yes.
because when young people take a diploma, that's them accepting responsibility for their life, saying goodbye to special services.
I'm done at 18.
Yeah, and then it's like a door closing and locking behind them. They can't go back to get those therapies, those services that they still need, but are being denied because they took that diploma.
Yeah.
So if you're still in high school, junior high school, elementary school, plan to have that diploma held back. And this is my biggest secret to success that I'm going to share with all of you today. Because my mother saw, because of my reading comprehension, because of all of my doing well on tests, but still not having everything I needed to succeed, we are letting our young people fall through the cracks and take the diploma and be denied services when we should be holding that diploma back and keeping their transition plans open so they can continue to receive the services.
I gotta say, I'm a little surprised that this is the advice.
Yes, because diploma. The problem is not the diploma.
Right.
It's the diploma track.
Okay.
Once you have enough credits to graduate, you're out.
Right.
Even if you're not prepared for life, even if no one addressed your self-advocacy skills, your organizational skills, because if you're on a diploma track, you're in a heavy academic timetable.
Yeah.
So when do they have time to give you work experience? Work experience is a known predictor of adult success. And there are lots of great programs available to students who are not getting a diploma, or who are taking programs that people who are not taking a diploma can take advantage of, and people who are taking a diploma don't have time. So to me, what we need is a blended track for our students, with a real transition plan, with a real goal, and that the services lead to realizing that goal.
Yeah.
So say, for example, the goal is to go to college, and you think, oh, so the transition IEP should say that they'll apply to college. Well, no. What skills do they need to be successful in college? Time management, organization of their materials, breaking tasks down into pieces. We're sending kids out with academic ability to go to college, but without preparing them for life. I know a guy who went to college and never took a shower for the first 2 weeks of school because no one ever told him he stunk. And at home, his mom would say, "You stink, go take a shower."
Right.
But when he was living in the dorm, no one ever said, "You stink." So he never went and took a shower.
Okay.
So you see what
Yes.
and he was a diploma track kid. He did not get everything he needed. So I'm all in favor of a high academic standard, but not at the price of not preparing people for life.
Okay.
And even if you have taken a diploma, even if you are past that point and you're looking for guidance, I mean, look at me. I wanted to be George Lucas's accountant. I more or less accomplished that goal, but I found something better for myself, helping my peers and helping their allies realize their true potential. So know that it's never too late to lead a better life for yourself.
That's a wonderful thing to end on, and yet I have more questions.
They'll never end, and that's fine.
And so I love the idea of a blended track,
Yeah.
but what I see here in Los Angeles is that there are a lot of people, it's either or. You either do the diploma track or you stick around, and then if you stick around for another 3 years of funding on our dime, we don't give you the diploma at the end. I have seen parents who managed to get the diploma, but they had to pull teeth and strings and all
Well,
different
no
kinds
one's.
of
It's
things.
not going to be easy.
Okay.
For us, it was easy because we had a lot of facts that proved that this was the right thing to do.
And I had a wonderful mother who knew the system inside and
do
out,
have
so
that,
I'm
Tom.
extremely
Thank you.
grateful for that.
But we didn't have to fight because I used facts.
Okay.
Here's the fact. We're saying he has the ability to do math at a college level and he's in high school, but he doesn't understand word problems.
Right.
We are dooming him. How is he going to become an accountant when he has the mathematical ability if he can't do the word problems? So we documented where the needs were and kept the transition plan going to work on those
So
things.
you actually did this with Tom, you did this, you stayed in high school longer.
But
and
not
then-
at high school.
Not at high
Not
school.
at
My
high
transition
school.
plan was still open. I'm still
I
going to community
see.
college, receiving services
I
that otherwise
see.
would have been denied, and I was able to become my best self.
We
and
don't want
still
anyone
have the
staying
help.
on the high school campus. That is
No,
not
no,
what we're talking about.
Okay.
You go to
I'm glad I asked that.
age-appropriate places,
Right.
and you continue to work on your goals. Like
But then when do you go back and get the high school diploma?
once
when
you've
you're
met
done?
your goals, once the transition plan is considered complete. So it's all about writing a great transition plan, and Come to Life says Volume 1.
Ah.
Well, Volume 2 is me answering these questions.
Okay.
And I'm working on it.
So this is just the beginning.
Okay, I'm so happy. I wanted to say, Lori Carlton says hi and thank you for all you do. Paula says hello, and Beverly has written in to ask, how do I help my daughter cope with some real rough days? I don't know what to say to do or help her. Why does my grandson hit himself so hard? This is something new. So that's going to be a longer conversation. He does very well in a lot of therapy to help him with his mother who works with him all the time. I just wish I just had someone to talk to sometimes, and thanks for listening. And I want to say that, there are lots of places where, you can come here and you can talk to us. But I also want to let everybody know that there are autism parent groups all over online. We had Lisa Ackerman from Taka on yesterday, and they have online groups where you can talk to people online, but they also have coffee talks where you can go and sit and meet with other parents, which is a very helpful thing. But there are groups, more groups than I can shake a stick at. Don't you agree, Emily?
I needed one. I helped form the Santa Clarita Autism Asperger Network, which is still going, but a lot of people are preferring online support now.
Yeah.
But know you're not alone.
Right.
Know there's hope, and know there's help.
And I would say for your daughter, get Come to Life and work through that together so that you can help her with the rough days. And then we're going to talk about your grandson and the hitting himself so hard in just a second. But Wright has said, thank you so much for sharing this information that is hard to tackle because of fear. And I think that that's true. We all get afraid and we get paralyzed.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but let's say your cumulative websites again so that people will know how they can reach
All
both
right.
of you.
So EmilyIland.com, that's ILAND.
There's no S in Iland.
That's right.
Yeah, people are quick to write down Island like Rhode Island, but no S.
No S in
So
Iland.
EmilyIsland.com or BeSafeTheMovie.com.
Okay.
And I'm ThomasIsland.com.
Okay. Should I be calling you Thomas instead of Tom?
I prefer Tom. It's like a nickname to me,
Okay.
but my birth name, my legal name is Thomas, and I'm
Okay,
using
so
it in the
it's okay
in
for
the
me to say
professional
Tom.
sense.
Got it.
And somebody else already had TomIsland.com.
Yeah, some
With no
website,
S?
some website in Russia has
Wow.
TomIsland.com.
Yeah.
So I had to go
Up with
Thomas.
that. Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys much more than you know.
We appreciate
honestly.
you. You're wonderful.
And thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to having you back on when Volume 2 is out.
It's in the works.
Because I already have questions. All right. We're going to take a break. And then when we come back, you guys, it's time for us